Hi guys, and welcome to another review. This time I bring you the KZ Ling Long. I apologize for not actually having the outer box that brings the case inside, but unfortunately when I was opening it I ripped it, so I ended up throwing it away. Anyway, inside of that box it just brings this, this kind of a Pelican case copy. Simple, we already know what this is about, and inside the Pelican case we bring a few tips, the usual KZ stuff, and then we bring the actual IEM itself, this bullet style micro IEM sporting a 6mm XUN technology driver, which basically is the same driver as you find then in the HM20, the CCA HM20, but that in 7mm, and then the usual 10mm drivers that you find in other KZ sets. Anyway, Ling Long, as far as as much as I was able to ascertain, means exquisite, and I think that word in itself explains very well what the Ling Long is about. It's an IM that I've had already for a couple of weeks, but I took my time listening to it because when I received it, I took it out, put it in my ears, and I was like, what is this? I was so let's say surprised with what I was hearing that I kind of said to myself, no, you probably just got some brain burn because you were just listening to some other sets, and this isn't exactly what you're listening to. So I took it off, let it burn for a while, although I'm not a big believer, but I just left it there burning for a little bit, for a few hours, for a couple of days, and then went back to it and listened to it again, and then I was once again surprised by, wow, what is this? Is this really a KZ? Is this really just a 6mm driver? I think that says, in a nutshell, how impressed I was, and I am, with the Ling Long. KZ has, over the last couple of, let's say, year and a half, maybe going on to two, shown big steps in improvement in their IEMs, be that mainly the DDs, the planars that they came out as well with. They took a few times to get it right, but they finally got it right. The PR1 Pro is pretty amazing, and then in the hybrids, it's perhaps where they still, I think, are kind of feeling ground to make something which is truly special. But anyway, back to the Ling Long. It's an IEM that, let's not forget, first of all, and let's keep this always in mind, we are talking $15, so we can't expect the performance of an Anole VX, or we can't expect that we are listening now to a U12T, No, we are listening to a $15 single dynamic that, taking into account what it costs and taking into account that it's a 6mm driver, what it does is nothing short of amazing. The way that this has been tuned kind of goes against what is usually the tendency of tuning smaller drivers, which is to give them a nice big fat mid-bass bump. They roll off from like 50-60 hertz down, they get rolled off, but that area there between 60 and 300 gets a nice thick bump to kind of give the illusion of having all this bass that it doesn't have, or it shouldn't have because of the size. But obviously then that brings some negative points down the line in terms of the mids and the highs, and then the way that the highs are done isn't exactly as well exemplary. It ends up usually being a kind of a V-shaped sound that for what it is, it's fine, but it doesn't score any points when it comes to ultimate quality or anything of the sort. There have been the occasional micro IEMs that have shown some promise. There's been some stuff from Final Audio and the E2K, E3K, but we're already entering a price range which is way above what this costs. So at this price, up to, let's say, $25, okay, which is the price. Well, actually, the Vesna is $20, but let's say up to $25. There really hasn't been anything truly special. The only one that really caught my attention, and it's really an older IM that you might be able to find some store if you have it, but it's been discontinued, is the DQSM Hermit, this baby here, which is an IM that went very much under the radar. And although it had again that typical mid-bass bump, it had highs, well, upper mids and highs that were really well done. And although, yes, the signature was still a kind of a V-shaped signature, it was a very, very satisfying little micro dynamic IM to listen to. There were a few other models that I actually could have included here. I mean, I could have included here the HD Sound waist drum, but again, that's more expensive. There's a couple of Semphers as well that kind of almost fall into this price range. But I thought, let me keep myself to what is more current and to what is let's say more popular. Excuse me. Then following this, the first real micro dynamic driver that came out and kind of really impressed, I think, a lot of people was the Tension Tanya. And it's a nice sounding IM. It's got a nice, thick, warmish sound to it. Not a lot of detail up top, but the overall sound presentation is a nice, warm, kind of organic sound, which is, again, if you consider it's a 7mm driver, it is quite surprising. Then, well, there's been a few other releases, but then roughly at about the same time, we had Astrotech come out with the Vesna. The little Q came out from KB Ear. The Vesna again followed that mid-bass kind of bump with a nicely done upper mids and treble, so the area above the initial pinna gain up to about 8K was quite nicely done over here. The problem that plagued the Astrotech was a lot of quality control issues. Units would come out with, this was the fourth one, I think that says all, that I had to get before I finally got one that was proper. Channel imbalances were very big. I managed to fix all of those channel imbalances on the other sets, but it's actually quite frustrating because I know how to do it, but the majority of you don't, and so you end up buying a set that costs $20, fine, but there were two versions of this which had a detachable cable, and the detachable cable was way more expensive. The KB Ear little Q came out towards more the end of the year. And although it had, again, that mid-bass bump, it was a little bit less than we had found on the others. But it had a nice sub-bass extension. And when you listen to it, yes, you do feel that it's got that sub-bass extension, which kind of reminds you of what you get here on the Ling Long. The upper mids and treble were not badly done. If anything, it's that mid-bass bump there that kind of brings some mud into the whole presentation into the upper frequency. So you kind of, it's a nice little set to listen to. Honestly, it's a nice little set to listen to. I can't really complain. I feel that if they had just been a little bit more attentive to the way that the mid bass was done, they could have had a real true winner. And the kind of let's say hyping that the Ling Long is slowly getting, they could have had it, but it is what it is. There's another set here that has gone very much under the radar, and I think it's for two reasons. The first reason being its price, which is roughly $50, which is the NF Audio RA10. This has also got a little 6mm driver. It's got a different kind of a shell, as you can see, but this thing fits absolutely flawlessly in your ears. I mean, they just disappear in my ears. And this was, up until the Ling Long came along, the first of the micro sets, let's say, that I found had a really, really nice tuning. No mid-bass bump, just enough extension into the sub-bass. Nicely done pinna gain, nice then roll off after that pinna gain of 2.5 3K more or less, nicely rolled off. So nice trebled, nice smooth treble with no peaks at the usual places. Really, really unbelievably sounding set, and honestly, it's a pity that it's this expensive. I think that if maybe NF Audio would have been able to get the set costing around $25 to $30, it would have gotten a little bit more traction, because it is really, really a nice set. So enter the Ling Long. Sub-bass focused. So I mean, it's you can feel it rumble. which when you consider it's a 6mm, you kind of, you get quite impressed. It immediately comes down very easily, and by 300 hertz it's basically flat. I mean, there's really nothing to be pointed there. Then it's got a nice progressive pinna gain, peaks at about 2.5 to 3K, somewhere in between there. And then depending, I've got 3 sets of them, so they kind of all fall between that, little bracket there. And then it starts falling off, giving it a nice, a really well executed upper mids and treble area. Graphically, it does show some extension past 10K, but in reality, what you do here is very little or nothing, and that is perhaps the only little. It's not even a fault, because I mean, like I say, it's $15 first of all, 6mm, and what it is able to do, considering those two limitations straight away, is nothing short of amazing. Honestly, it is truly nothing short of amazing. The bass is fast enough. It's got a good texture. It's got a good dynamic feel to it, which puts to shame many drivers. Bigger than that, it puts to shame many sets in the $50 range even, sporting 8mm drivers, 10mm drivers. So I mean, that there is already point number one for the Ling Long. Mids, probably the main. The sub bass and the mids are probably the two main points of attraction of this set. The mids are absolutely flawless. The mids here remind me very much of the mids of the HM20, which I really enjoyed. It's a set that got a little bit of a mixed vibe. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it, some people thought it was too bass heavy. I particularly didn't find it was bass heavy, although graphically it seemed like it. But it's a 7mm driver, so. And that's the thing that happens. Yeah, when you look at this graphically, and I'll show it to you in a couple of minutes, you think, oh my God, this thing must be an absolute bass monster. No, don't forget, it's a 6mm driver, so it's all about displacement. It can graphically have all of that there, and quality, and in terms of quality, you do feel that it's got that rumble, it's got that, but it doesn't have the same kind of impact as let's say an equally well-tuned 10mm driver. Mids, as I said, perfect, absolutely nothing to say about it. And then the highs, smooth. There's no hints of sibilance, there's no hints of aggressiveness. It is smooth as butter. Would I have liked to have a little bit more detail? Yes, I would have liked. But is it well done? Is it well matched with the rest? Yes, it is. And to do justice to it, there were only a couple of songs, like Unconditional from Soul Persona, which is a song that I like listening to. It starts off with this nice impact of the bass drum with these cymbals going on, and yes, it's one of those songs where you can feel that the Ling Long is struggling a little bit to get those cymbals across, to show it, or to give them the impact that they need to have. What you're gonna do from Frank McComb, it gives his voice, the way that this has been tuned, it gives his voice the perfect weight. It gives his voice a very realistic sense. Actually, in that aspect, I mean, the timbre and the tonality of the Ling Long, I think, is again one of its biggest characteristics, or more positive characteristics in terms of its technicalities. I didn't particularly find its soundstage to be big, although it is an open back application. I didn't particularly find it to be big, although imaging was pretty decent. But I think the nice thing about this here in terms of its technicalities is its tonality and its timbre, which is, in my opinion, very, very much correct. With a few exceptions, I mean, it's absolutely flawless. It's got a very old school, nice vibe to it. I think it's a nice way of putting it. Swept Away from Carol Duboc, a song that I also like listening to quite often. Very nice. It just does it very well. Her voice comes across with the right energy, with the right tonality. There's really nothing that I can point and say, oh no, it's not doing it properly. It's no. With different styles, let's say, if I start going into songs which are a little bit more on the EDM vibe, I mean, for the most part, this is not a bass head IEM, please, but for the most part, I think that it has more than enough impact to confer that style of music. It's the engagement that it requires, and that's the reality. This is a fun sounding set. You know, technicalities are not its forte. It's supposed to be fun, nice to listen to, engaging to listen to, and for the most part, you know, it does everything very nicely. Riviera by Bob Zop. Guitars in that song, nicely. I mean, nice. It's got a nice bass line going. It does it beautifully. You know, you listen to it and you think to yourself, how is it possible? This is only a 6mm driver. I will say one thing: if you can get this thing to go right into your ear, so let's go Etimotic style, you won't believe. You really will not believe how good it is. I did that. I really rammed them inside there, to be honest. Is it comfortable? No, it's not comfortable. But I wanted to see what it would. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So if you can, let's say, deal with it, or if your ear canals are you know, big enough in terms of diameter to allow you to fit the IM, you know, deeper with a certain amount of comfort, you won't be disappointed. Honestly, you won't. You will be quite impressed. As I mentioned, technicalities are not its forte. Soundstage is okay. Imaging I actually found was pretty good. Detailed retrieval, micro details and so on. Again, I think because of the way that the treble has been done, it's not bad, but you know, you will occasionally find songs that surprise you and you say, oh wow, I wasn't expecting it to pick up this little detail, and it did. The Chemistry of Love from Michael Franks, another song that I usually like listening to. It does it flawlessly. Honestly, there's this kind of I can't explain. You have to listen to the song. You must listen to the song, and it is capable of giving enough air to that song to make it you know, feel well reproduced, well played back. Let's put it that way. Sweat, I was forgetting. Sweat from JK Reverb remix. Beautiful, plenty of impact again. So going back to what I was saying, although this is not a set that would probably be a bass head's delight, or you know, or the ideal for EDM or electronic music of sorts, it does it well. It does it really well. There's really nothing to complain. Oh, I was forgetting. 80s Bruno Mueller, absolutely amazing on the Ling Long. I was really impressed. I was truly impressed. You gotta listen to it. Honestly, if you guys have a chance and you get the Ling Long, which I think, I mean, this is not gonna break the bank. I know $15 is money for a lot of people, but if you can afford it, and you know, get it. You will not be disappointed. Puerto Banús by Paul Hardcastle again. It's a more of an EDM style song. Amazing. You got to listen to it on the Ling Long. It does it full justice. You know, there's nothing there that you say, oh, okay. As compared to the others that we have here, well, it's really going to be a simple one. I'm not going to go in any particular order. The Tanya is good, but it just sounds tuned in a very immature manner when compared to the Ling Long. The Ling Long, you listen to it and you can see and you can hear that there was care taken in the way that it was tuned. Was it done on purpose? Was it by luck? I really don't know. I want to think that it was done on purpose. I want to think that they thought about it properly, and it wasn't just let's just do it this way and see what, throw something to the air and see where it falls. No. So compared to the Tanya, so that's out of the equation. Compared to the RA10, in terms of overall engagement, probably the Ling Long will be more gratifying. If I want something which is more audiophile correct with more detail up top, the RA10. Trust me when I say that this IM is truly special. It is a true pity, that it's priced the way it is, because it has everything to be a fantastic IM. It has everything that, it keeps up very well with the likes of A3000, A4000 from Final Audio. Very well. Okay, that's out of the way. Well, compared to the DQSM, this is obviously not available anymore. If there is one thing I would like the Ling Long to have is the detail that this has up top. Some might say, oh, but it's a little bit forced, it's a little bit unreal, uncolored, and fatiguing. Honestly, because of the way that it's being tuned, no, it isn't. Obviously, if this kind of detail was applied here on the Ling Long, it would have to be adapted accordingly. But this, in terms of detail, micro details, all of that stuff, this thing is an absolute wonder of an IEM. And again, an IEM that just went under the radar very much. So this leaves us basically with, the Vesna and the little Q. The Vesna, if it just had a little bit less mid bass, it would be, in my opinion, and I say this with confidence, it would be every bit as good as the Ling Long. Its flaw, it's the mid bass being a little bit overly done, and well, its real flaw is the poor control that there was with regards to the build. There's a lot of similarities in the way that this and the Hermit actually perform above 1K, just different energy levels, which kind of makes me, maybe they share the same driver. I wouldn't know. But anyway, so that's Vesna out of the way, and leaves us with the little Q. And basically, I said a little bit earlier what I think is the little Q's flaw, and I'm kind of hoping that K Beer will see this video and take note on this suggestion that I'm going to make. Reduce the mid bass here, leave the sub bass as it is, reduce the mid bass here, and just work a little bit on polishing up the above pinna gain area onwards, so above 1K. And this has everything necessary to be on the same level as the Ling Long. So ultimately, what am I saying by all of this long conversation? Ling Long, if you want a micro driver done properly, that if it had here written on it Moondrop or Dunu or Let's Sure, it would do those names justice. This is the one. I mean, you those that follow me know me that I try and be as brutally honest as possible. When I like an IEM, I say that I like it. When I don't like it, I say that I don't like it. And finally, just a quick little thing. If there's one IEM that I've repeatedly said over the past that I think KZ did very well in terms of single EDs, it's been the EDA balanced. And listening to the Ling Long, it reminded me a lot of the EDA balanced. Different energy levels, but the overall kind of sound presentation that you get from this is very much the sound presentation that you get from the EDA balanced. They've now launched a new one, the ZVX, which I'll be reviewing now shortly. My first impressions of it have been quite favorable, but I think that somehow they are, in the bigger drivers, they kind of losing a little bit their way. They did well with the EDA balance, they did well with the Ultra, they did well with the CRA. The CRA Plus should have been named another thing, but it wasn't a bad sounding one. The Lyra and the CXS were decent, but on a lower level than the EDA Balanced and the EDX Ultra and the CRA. And now the newer ones, the DQS was for me a disappointment, too bass heavy. So let's see now how the ZVX comes out, and what my final opinion about it will be. Anyway, guys, that's my take on the KZ Ling Long. I'll show you another graphs next, and that's it. Thank you. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the KZ Ling Long. As you can see straight away, here's the graph. As I mentioned before, when I was doing the main part of the review, everything sits within a window of 72 to 86, so 14 dBs, and you would think, oh, okay, such a big such a big gain on the bass, and no, it's what matters is this area here between, let's say, 70 and 300 hertz, and it's nice and coming down by 300 hertz. It's flat at 300 hertz basically. A nice slow progressive pinna gain, peaking at about 2.5 like I mentioned, and then that drop off which is nice and relaxed, peak at 8, and then some extension which doesn't really exist. Sub bass focused, it's by no means it's a sub bass monster. No, forget it, it isn't. I mean, it isn't. The pinna gain in terms of the pinna gain is 72 roughly to 83, so roughly 11 dBs. It's just above the ideal, let's say 10 dB barrier. But again, this doesn't what the graph says and what you listen, it's not exactly 100%, and it's basically down to the fact that it's just a 6mm driver. Anyway, this is the graph of the Vesna, and as I said a little bit earlier, the Vesna has everything in terms of its mid, the mid presentation, upper mids and treble. Actually, it's got more detail even to be like the Ling Long, or as good as the Ling Long. It's just that this little mid bass bump here is a pity, and it's something that could easily be resolved. Okay, so that's that. The next one here, excuse me. This is the little Q. Again, the little Q, as you can see, it's got some elements of the Ling Long in terms of how the way the pinna gain is, peaking it close to 3 and then wanting to come down. There's a peak here at 7K. Some of it you don't really notice it, so I would say this peak here is somewhat coupler related. It's got more of that sub bass energy, as I mentioned before, but it's got also that big mid bass bump here, so they need to just bring this down, work a little bit on that there, and we've got a winner here. The next one is this one is the DQSM. Sorry, had a blank here. The DQSM. Yes, there is that amount of treble there. There is that plenty of detailed retrieval, loads of energy in the upper mids and treble area. Loads. And it's a nicely done energy. Obviously, the fact it's got this mid bass bump will counteract any possible aggressiveness. But the way that pinna gain comes, peaks at 3, and it's honestly, if you never heard the DQSM Hermit, it's a pity because you would have enjoyed it. And finally, actually let me just change the color here of the RA10 so you can see it a little bit better. There we go, that's much better. RA10, what do you know? Very similar to the Ling Long, very similar. And obviously the fact it's got less bass, all this whole area here, there is some coupler related peaking here, but there is more energy in the treble. And you notice that. You notice that it's a more detailed IEM by far than the Ling Long. And that's why I said, if you want a more overall fun sound, probably the Ling Long will satisfy you. If you want a more audiophile, a more sound that will be more, let's say, almost monitor capable, definitely the DQSM. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little take on the Ling Long. As always, any questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Have a good one.